Okay, I'm going to take an Apollo because it is a really slow steering rate, which makes it really fun to drive. Okay, so this video I'd like to talk about some patch news and how people like to exaggerate patch news and how everybody now is pretending they've been the best friend of Cyberpunk since its release. Okay, so let's start with the patch news and how they get exaggerated. So there's no really big patch news. The only news is, or the two pieces of news is that the game is going to switch to Unreal Engine for the next game, and that all new games by the developer are going to be in Unreal Engine. That's it. So there's no huge patch news or anything like some people like to say. It's actually very minimal patch news. And the only patches we might still get for this game are just minor patches. Perhaps some bug fixes and some minor additions or something. Well, that was to be expected. And the next thing I'd like to talk about is, we notice how everybody's now pretending they're Cyberpunk's best friend, even if they exploited the negative hype when public opinion was sort of against this game. And I think we got lucky that the game survived that negative hype amplification, because people who maximized the negative hype for clickbait, they wouldn't have cared if the game franchise would have probably get discontinued because of too much negative hype. They would have gotten their clicks and moved on to another game. And again, we got lucky the game didn't get too damaged by it, because I've seen other games, I think, that got undeservedly negative reviews, like Alien Isolation or Days Gone. And those games could have gotten great sequels, but they probably didn't get sequels because of that. And I'm happy that Cyberpunk survived all that negative hype. Because it could have went differently. What they could have done is just drop the ball after the initial release, fix up the base game, move on to the next game. But not only did they do the stuff that makes more money, like make giant DLCs with Idris Elba, which probably cost a lot of money to make just because you got Idris Elba in it, but they also improved the main game over the years because they really cared about the game. Now imagine, do you think Starfield is going to get the same amount of quality care like this game got? With all the, especially driving gameplay systems getting improved over and over? Probably not. What's a funny bit that Starfield got a lot of 9.5 reviews out of 10. Not sure where that comes from. And I think that we got lucky with this game because, for two reasons. First, the developer really cared about making it better and better all the time, which means the developers are really emotionally attached to that product. Which I think that's a rare thing in video games like that. And the thing is, if you look at this game, it's basically, I wouldn't call it a clone, but what clone is a bit demeaning. It's basically built like a GTA game. You have this open world city, drive around with a car, and you have missions. And we noticed that almost every other GTA clone game fails. Like, for example, Saints Row, if you played the series. Those games fundamentally suck because the developers skipped the most important part. Now, what would you consider the most important part? Well, for me, it's the driving experience. Like, nothing is more important than the physics of driving in a video game like this. The GTA developers understand that because there was always a core experience in the game, like the physics of the driving. And luckily, the Cyberpunk developers also understand that. And I think they do driving better in some areas than any GTA game, especially motorcycle driving. And for example, Saints Row messed this up because they probably thought they can get away without it. And notice how in Saints Row, the game has to be over the top, exaggerated with everything, because the core gameplay experience of just simply driving isn't there and isn't fun. And that's why they have to over-exaggerate everything, and nothing is really fun. Whereas in a game like this, you can just sit on a motorcycle and drive at modest speed through a city and be completely engaged in the experience. And that's why I play Cyberpunk most of the time. I just love to drive the game through city traffic. Also, the path racing looks really nice, as you can see. Also, with the forum post that I think what makes driving fun in this game is not how fast or slow the car is, it's how much precise control you have over the steering and the acceleration. I think the Apollo is in the sweet spot. It's one of those vehicles in this game where the acceleration is not too fast, which means you can gently press the pedal without instantly accelerating too fast. and you can really weave through traffic because the steering is relatively slow. And now I would like to talk about the Unreal Engine. I have just some slight concerns about it. Like, I like the Unreal Engine. It runs really well on really old hardware too, which is not a problem anymore because I upgraded my PC. However, one thing I'm concerned about is that what if the developers get some new lead gameplay designers in who think driving should be, heavens forbid, quote unquote, streamlined, quote unquote, made more accessible, or even worse, quote unquote, made more, quote unquote, fun. Because that would completely destroy the game. Because notice how the driving in this game is like a protected ecosystem that is shielded from the ravages of well-intentioned gameplay designers who manage to wreck other gameplay systems because they play too much Fortnite in their free time and think everything should be full of perk trees and amazing power-up perks. So notice the contrast in this game between the high realism of the driving experience and the stupid perk tree stuff. For example, in the perk tree, if you unlock some machine gun perks, your fire rate will go faster as your stamina goes slower. Why would you add something like that to the game? Why would you destroy the realistic shooting experience with a stupid perk that nobody asked for? Now, luckily, the driving is completely untouched by that. Because I think there's a group of developers within the driving who make the driving experience who wouldn't allow that to happen for the driving. I think this protected the game from a lot of damage. And it's my belief that any gameplay system where you inject more simulator depth, no matter which game it is, or which gameplay system, if it's driving, shooting a gun, flying a plane, or just drinking a glass of water, the more physicality you add into it, the more fun it will be. And incidentally, driving has always been fun in Cyberpunk, and it always got improved and it always got better because developers made it more and more realistic. And so that's my concern, that when they switch to a new engine, they get new people on, some people might overlook the high quality of the driving experience and not correctly port it over to the new game. Because you have to do a lot of fine-tuned, precise stuff that developers did, like the physics of the driving of the car, of the engine, of the traction of the wheels, the way acceleration works, the way the gearbox works, the way the camera works as you lean with your bike, and the subtle camera twitches. That has to be extremely fine-tuned, because if you get that camera twitching and movement wrong during driving, it ruins it. And I think the developers really got this right. Like, I think no other game developer got it this right so far. Because underneath all that cyberpunk ninja stuff with cyber implants and katanas and everybody having green hair, the underlying core experience of this game is a driving experience. For me, it's a driving simulator with some cyberpunk stuff, action adventure stuff on top. And I'm not saying this like in a demeaning way. It's just the driving is so good, and yeah, that's my concern. When they make it for the new engine, they really got to fine-tune it so it remains realistic like this. Because without the driving, I think Cyberpunk wouldn't be half the game it is.